I'm Michael Vera with Ryan Gable, and we are about to bring our guest on in just a moment. I will tell you a little bit about her. Dr. Judy Wood earned her PhD degree from Virginia Tech and is a former professor of mechanical engineering. She has research expertise in experimental stress analysis, structural mechanics, deformation analyst, material characterization, and material engineering science. She's got a long, long background here, folks. Dr. Wood left Clemson to research the 9/11 deal full time, and she has focused her research strictly on physical evidence and scientific principles. Where Did the Towers Go is her book, and she's been on Late Night in the Midlands before. This will be the first time on The Last Frequency. So let me go ahead and add Dr. Wood to our conversation.
Hello.
Good evening, Dr. Wood. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I am doing fine. I could be better. I'm recovering from an ear infection, but outside of that, I guess I'm making it. So,
that's good.
well, I welcome you back to the L&M Network. It's a privilege to have you. You're here with myself and Ryan. Ryan, you back?
I am back. I got cut off there. How are you doing tonight?
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing good. I've been meaning to talk to you for quite a while now. I've sent you some messages to have you on my show. They must not have gotten through, but it's good to speak with you tonight.
Oh, I didn't. I didn't get any. Sometimes I get snowed with a bunch of emails at one time, and I say I don't have a secretary, so I do the best I can.
Right. Mine's notorious for going to the spam folder, I think. So
Yeah,
that might be why.
So, Dr. Wood, I know that you wanted to talk about journalist integrity tonight. And I think that's a great topic. And wherever you'd like to start would be great.
Sure. The issue with journalistic integrity, I've come to realize that's what holds our whole culture together.
Right.
They call journalists the watchdog for truth. And if journalists aren't doing their job, everything comes apart.
That is absolutely correct. And that's what I say. That's why I get so hard on some of them out there, because it's like, you're that last line of defense, and it should be about getting to the truth, and certainly not about anything else.
If there was journalistic integrity, cover-ups would not thrive. Because cover-ups depend on having a whole bunch of stuff. As I say, turn the truth into a needle and cover it in a haystack of junk, so nobody can find it anymore.
Yeah, and I see the White House and people like Feinstein in California trying to pass legislation to make it that only certain people with certain clearances from news agencies are able to be considered journalists and protected under the Constitution, and others are not allowed to speak or write.
Well, there might not be something, totally bad with that. We need to consider all the aspects, because right now it's harder to find information than it ever has been. With the internet and people posting all sorts of junk, people talking about all sorts of junk, there's just noise.
Very true.
And so it's just all this muddle up. So how do you fix that? And, having one gatekeeper isn't the answer either. But I think there should be, like the standard. That's a very good point you brought up, because that's helping get to the solution, which is, have it like, okay, for my professional field, which is forensic science and engineering, doing studies, it depends on your data. Everything depends on the data. If you are caught making up data, you're gone. You're out of there for the rest of your life. You're toast.
That's
because
right.
You can't have anybody, messing with data.
And everybody at any level should be held to that same that same standard. It's I think that I've been telling my listeners for years, hold these people accountable. I get so mad when they get caught lying, and people quickly forget. They still tune in. They still believe everything that they're being told.
They make an excuse why they still need to watch it and believe it.
Yeah, and I think that.
Oh, but it's popular.
Isn't
it's
that
trendy.
I've been, not invited back to shows because the host got too many emails that she's this, that, and the other, all sorts of name calling, fringe, she, been debunked or whatever. Better to have her on again because we'll lose our listeners. So, that's going for popularity and not truth.
That's right.
The truth is really popular.
That is very well said. And I've had in the past, I've had listeners who, well, I wouldn't even say listeners, they're more like trolls that write and say, well, we listened to the show, but I'm not going to listen no more if you're going to promote this or that. And I tell them, well, don't listen then. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to get out some messages, and that's it. It's about the truth, not about you.
And the people who sell their show because they need to make a living, sell membership, to their show, people threaten to stop their membership. And so then what's the host going to do? And so he wants to stay in business, and so he starts falling short of the truth.
And we see a lot of that. That is a problem. Ryan and I were calling it the golden carrot. And that's what happens with a lot of these guys. They see the golden carrot dangled in front of their face, and they can't help themselves. They all want to be the next George Norrie or the next Alex Jones, and they'll sell their own mothers to get there.
Yeah.
I think it was Jesse Ventura who said, I like to give credit where the credit's due on the source, that what changed with mainstream news or network news is when the show 60 Minutes showed that the news can be profitable. Before it was only viewed as a public service kind of thing. But the 60 Minutes show, it showed that it could be profitable. So news started being marketed.
Right, that's what happens with a lot of these, almost all of the main big radio shows. Even the ones that claim to be alternative nowadays, they've really sold out so much that they've become the alternative mainstream.
Well, they're the alternative to the truth is what they are.
Yeah, exactly.
But go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
I gotta buy off some silence here.
So, Ryan.
Yes.
What's your opinion, I guess, on how we can clean this up? I don't think it's cleanable. I think it's really people using their common sense. God help us if
I think it has to be a way of accountability. Like if somebody is caught putting out fraudulent data, they're toast for the rest of their career. Why is it that way in with these whatever internet radio shows? They call it alternative, but whatever you want to call it. any host of anything, if they're caught lying to the people, that should become very, very known, and they should be toast.
They should be, but that's not always the case, obviously, because I feel like a lot of people, whether it's the mainstream, whether it's the alternative or what we call independent, a lot of people, they get into like a comfort zone with the radio show, and no matter what that host does, even if it's obvious that they sold out or that they're lying, they just kind of stick with it because they like that entertainment value they get from it.
So it's become entertainment now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
it's not about the truth. So who'll be left to sort out the truth? But does that mean that the people themselves don't want the truth?
I don't know if it's not that means they don't want the truth. I think that people want it, but a lot of times I think people also maybe don't really know what the truth is. A lot of times people, I think, philosophically think that the truth is whatever they believe the truth to be. I feel like a lot of scientists do this too. right, they do research and they change the results to match their preconceived idea of what they were thinking before they even did the scientific studies.
Or what their the sponsor of their financing wants.
Yeah, exactly. So they'll just change the evidence rather than altering the theory to align with the new evidence that they've received.
Theory, that's another big word. You know how to cover up irrefutable evidence?
Make up a theory?
No, you call it you call it a theory. You call it a theory and then say it has no evidence to support it. When it's just evidence itself.
Very true.
And it works. It's amazing how it works, but you have to have a good advertising campaign. Lots of advertising dollars, and that's what it becomes. So people can get sold about anything, it seems.
They can too, and I've even gone toe to toe with some of the volunteers who help me with the chat room, because there's times when it seems like they'll believe anything, and it's like, no, how could you believe that without evidence? I mean, belief has no value, really. It's about the facts, about what you can prove.
Yep, like in a forensic study, whatever forensic study you want to talk about. As I have said, my famous phrase is, know what it is that you know, and know that everything else you don't know. And don't fill in that gap with guesses, theories, speculation, whatever, projections, because then you don't know what you got anymore.
Do you not think that speculation, just a tiny, tiny bit, could help lead to other things that could result in finding more factual information?
But that's not speculating. You have intuition is fine, but in privacy to go exploring something. Like you have a hunch. Okay, that hunch is tells you where to go look for the evidence. Then you got the evidence. But you don't publish your speculation and theories.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and a good example is the Casey Anthony trial. The prosecution hadn't solved the crime yet before they took to court.
Yeah,
I feel like that's how a lot of things are run today. It's based on speculation, and it's just people repeating what other people say.
Exactly, or belief, and it was tried in the court of public opinion, which isn't supposed to happen at all. People, it was played up as though she was evil, this, that, and the other, and you don't know what happened. If you can't prove what happened, how do you charge somebody with a death penalty crime?
Exactly.
If you don't know what happened. Here's an example, play devil's advocate on the particular thing of the Casey Anthony deal. I'm not saying she's a good mother, but I do know there's a lot of irresponsible mothers and nannies and so forth give their kid cough syrup or something or sleep medicine so the kid will go to sleep so they can go watch TV in peace and quiet. Well, let's say Casey Anthony doped up her kid with sleeping medicine, and then the mother wanted to go out and do something, and she gave the kid sleeping medicine, and the father wanted to go, and he gave the kid sleeping medicine, and the kid died from the overdose.
Yeah, I feel like that's more acceptable. You know what? I was actually just
well, see, that's not premeditated murder. See what I'm saying? It's a different crime, and if you have not solved the crime, how do you charge somebody with what was the crime now? And the point being, she was taken to court on speculation and theories, theorizing. You can't solve a crime with theories. You can't take a case to court with theories.
But at that point, it becomes an entertainment spectacle.
Well, yeah, that had nothing to do with reality. But I guess a good example is the Malaysian Airlines 370.
Yes.
I called that the Where's Waldo scavenger hunt. It was from the get-go. I don't have a TV, but what I saw online is everyone's talking about maybe it went here, maybe it went there. And somebody asked me on a show, and I said, well, first thing I'd do is, was there such a plane? Did that plane take off? And if it took off, which way was it headed? I don't know any of those answers, so I'm done. anything more than that. It actually, after that, they would say, well, it went this way, it went that way, now it's down here, now it's over here, now we're looking at come on. I do understand that the Pratt & Whitney or whoever makes the engines it's kind of like a transponder thing on the engines. They can know, exactly what the problem is when it has a problem. But somebody would know something if there wasn't an airplane that took off. But they don't want to tell us. So we can't, we're done.
Well, that's exactly it. And then you'll have people who come out and claim that they know this or that, but they have nothing to back it up. And
they come up with elaborate stories.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of radio show hosts do. They jump on the story the night it happens or the next night just to get the entertainment, or the entertainment value.
I'm the first one. I'm the first one to guess.
Exactly. Like we have the exclusive story, and you've got 50,000 radio shows saying the exact same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's various people in the quote alternative circuit who listen to bits and pieces here, and they come up with their own story. Then they make the circuit with their story, and it's like, whatever happened to news?
Exactly. Whatever did happen to it, and you're right. There is a lot of that going on, and it's disgusting sometimes to me. And and I've called several people out on it, and you get told, "Oh, let's stop the infighting. We're all on the same team." And,
that's right. That's another card that gets played. The Unity card.
Oh yeah, it's in the troll playbook. Stop the infighting, because now you got to feel like you're being the bad guy or bad woman because you're standing up for what's right.
What is infighting?
Exactly.
What is infighting? It is, with regard to 9/11, is saying that the NIST report has some problems with it, or the official story has some errors in. Is that infighting?
Exactly. It's like we're not on the same team if you're promoting disinformation. And
right. If we're interested in truth, we all should be heading in the same direction.
We all should be heading in the same direction, but at the point where people divert, that's when you start to see that there's either major ego involved or somebody's trying to cover something up.
But either way, I love that quote. I forgot who actually first said it, but it's been used by lots of people. Lead follower, get out of the way. That applies to people. There's leaders, there's followers, and then there's those in the way. If somebody can't handle the truth, then they're in the way. If they're causing a problem. Whether it's ego or whatever it is, they're in the way.
I feel like a lot of our media now has really become, especially talking about journalistic integrity, really obviously it's about repeating, getting ratings, but it's almost as if people nowadays have heard so much of the speculation, so much of the news anchor's opinion, that they take that for being reality and they take that for being truth. So when they're actually presented with real facts, they ignore that as if that's not the truth. That could never be the truth because they're so used to the speculation.
Until I haven't watched TV in ages. I never really watched much of it, but I think it's changed from my last memory of it. But there's different events that have happened through history in the quote mainstream media, and I tend to call it network media. What's mainstream? Like Alex Jones, I would call him mainstream, but it's not the typical network. Well, it does have his own network, but there's quite a few different. Not quite a few. There's not that many. The first one I could think of is Janet Cook, who wrote for the Washington Post. She published a story about Jimmy's World, a kid from the inner city who I think was on heroin or something as a kid. It was a tearjerker of a story. Even the mayor was saying he knew Jimmy. It was a fake story.
Jeez.
And this Janet Cook won the Pulitzer Prize for her story. She wrote the story. It was published September 28th, 1980, and she got the Pulitzer Prize April 13th, 1981.
All for a fake story.
Yep. Two days later, it was discovered it was a fake story. after she got the Pulitzer Prize.
Well, look at that guy. What's his name there that was out there telling everybody the white hats were coming to save everybody. I mean, look at that BS. How long that went on? And
But
where are these white hats? Where's the Long Ranger? I
well,
haven't seen him yet.
who said the white hats?
Oh, what's his name there? He's got it's one name. I can't think of his name.
Is it network media or the alternative?
It's like alternative media. He's been
okay. I'm right now focusing on the mainstream network media, and because there's a difference, and maybe we can learn something from them. But this Janet Cook story that she was hung for, she's out of journalism. Yeah, her career was toast because of that.
Yeah. Well.
And then let's see, Stephen Glass. That's my favorite one. He's probably the most well known for it. It was pretty amazing. Let's see, 90, I think he started in 96, 98 or 95 to 98, working for the New Republic. And during that time, he was also going to law school to be a lawyer. He wrote 41 stories total. It was May 18th, 1998 was his big day, when their competitor, Forbes magazine, wondered how did they get the scoop on us for this story. And they went and wanted to do a follow-up story, and they kept checking. They couldn't find this exists, couldn't find that existed. And then they called the guy who wrote the story. They called his boss, and said he thinks somebody's been duped here. And they got to checking further and further. And meanwhile, Stephen Glass, who wrote the story, he went to the extent of then making a fake website of this fake company. And he bought answering services at phone numbers of these various locations. It was quite elaborate, the extent he went to. That was his 41st story. For a while, it was thought that it was 27 articles had partly or fully fabricated, but it's now 36 out of the 41. They can't find the other stories, but they've had to check that out. It's hard to do, prove a negative. You have to check every word in the thing, because that almost took the New Republic publication under.
Yeah, and something like that could, and it should, if you're putting out false information.
Exactly.
I've made mistakes in the past, but when I do, I'll come right on air and I'll let people know I made a mistake. And there's a lot of people who won't do that. They'll just cover it up with more lies. And I've not made no big mistakes, but I stay, I keep myself in a position where I'm, if I see evidence that takes me another way, I reserve the right to change my mind. I've been on the middle of the fence with some things. Sandy Hook or whatever, that's one of them. I've gone both ways with it. It's like I didn't believe, I do believe. It depends on where the evidence comes from. I really need to see sources. And I have some listeners who will chop me up because, I say, well,
you don't buy right into it.
And I don't care either. It's, if it's not proven to me, I'm not going to go along with it.
That's right. I feel like I'm always on a teeter-totter going back and forth trying to look at sources from both sides.
That's what it does to you, because it spins you around in circles with junk.
Yeah.
So those who are putting out junk with the Sandy Hook thing have also put out junk with a bunch of other stuff. So, why are people listening to them? Yeah. That's a kind of problem. This Jack Kelly, who wrote for USA Today, was in Belgrade. That's when he got outed on. He was even nominated and a finalist for Pulitzer Prize in 2002. But he wrote this story that nobody could check out the sources on. And somebody went to Belgrade and to the Humanitarian Law Center to talk to this person who's supposed to be a source, and that person didn't know anything about it. He got fired, and so did a couple of the editors above him. And USA Today put on the front page, a big apology to everybody, owning up to it, because otherwise they're toast. They're nothing different than National Enquirer.
I love these hosts, whether it be TV or radio or what have you, that always say, well, I've got this information from a very, very credible source. They can never give you any kind of...
Can't disclose the source.
Yeah, and if it's a document that they want to prove it with, so it's a PDF document, which anybody could make up online. So that doesn't prove nothing to me. It's like, you got to take me to the source. Where did it come from? I mean, well, I can't tell you that. It's like, well, I can't believe it then.
Right. It's we see a lot of that. I won't mention where. And then there's Dan Rather. You probably remember that event.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Rathergate, and he was the reporter, but he was the fall guy. Imagine, I think it said he was either 43 or 44 years total. He was with CBS, 24 years as the nightly anchor. Somebody gave him the story. And I understand the story is correct, but the document they gave him was fake. Wow. It had the wrong font. It had a modern proportional font that they wouldn't have had in 1970, and so he was trashed for that. Like, whoops, he's all done.
Just like that.
He was in a hurry to put out a story and not check the sources.
Well, the reporters nowadays don't. It's somebody gives them the story. And the person who, I guess it was Mary Mapes, was the producer of the story, for that show. She got fired. Everybody else was resigning, but she actually got fired. But that keeps the journalistic integrity. Yeah, they may not have a lot of bandwidth for what they do cover, but they get held accountable for stuff.
And they should be.
Yep, all journalists should be.
That's right. They should.
Here's a case: Mitch Albom. I forget how many years he's been in journalism. A writer for the Detroit Free Press, has written lots of books. He was going to the Final Four playoff. I think it was North Carolina, but playing Michigan State, and they're in the Final Four. And former players from that team were now in the NBA, and they said they're going to stop, drop in on the game, watch it. So Mitch Albom writes up the story. It's coming out in Sunday's paper, but he's writing the story up on Friday night. The game is Saturday. And he writes the story up that he said hi to him or something, that they were there in the crowd. And the next day he goes to the basketball game, and those guys had to change the plans and didn't go to the game. And the story got printed saying they were there when they weren't. So it wasn't intended fabrication. It was an oops sloppiness. Having his story from Friday night in there, he has gotten so hung on that. He was cooked for that.
Right, it's like you can't really categorize it as an absolute in terms of what we're discussing here. You can't say it's all intentional, it's all unintentional. It's just certain cases. Right,
but he's kept a clean nose after that.
I understand mistakes. People do make mistakes, but when they continue to make those mistakes, that's when I have to call them out. It's like, all right, you're continuously putting out this information, and that means to me you're a disinformationist. And, yeah. So.
The Stephen Glass, and we'll get back to him. So he got booted in May of 1998 from the New Republic in disgrace. It's a pretty interesting story how his boss said, well, you said you're at this convention. Well, let's go to that place and you show me. And they go there. Yeah, it was last Sunday. And then the guy at the desk says, oh, we're not open on Sundays. and he says, well, I know we were here because we had dinner across the street in the restaurant. And it says, close at 3 p.m. on Sundays. He was hurting. But he was very creative in how to work people. Anyway, he graduated from Georgetown University Law School. I think it was in 2000, and then took the New York state bar exam, passed, and applied for what do you call it, a lawyer license, the state bar. And they discovered he had lied on his application. That he said he had fessed up to all of the fake articles. He hadn't done that at all. At that time, they only had like 5. They had a team of people going through all of his articles to see which ones are fake. Because how do you issue a retraction if you can't say what was wrong and what was they just have a statement, a general statement saying it's questionable, but it leaves them, the magazine in a tough predicament. So anyway, it looked like they were going to. He learned they were going to toss him because of ethical issues. So he withdrew his application, moved to California, and goofed around there for a bit. I think somebody said he was a street magician or something. But then he applied for the state bar there, and he was turned down. He appealed it to another level, and it's a split decision or something. Anyway, it gets up to the Supreme Court in the state of California. It wanted to be a lawyer there, and the case was heard this past November, and the decision came out in January 2014. It's a fascinating case. It's about an hour-long thing. It's fascinating to watch because it starts out they're grilling the lawyer who's against letting him into the bar, and it looks like they're grilling her, but then they start helping her, and it's like they keep pouring on the gasoline. They're just really venting their anger. I don't know. Did you watch it, Michael?
No, actually I did not, but I'm certainly gonna now.
It's not a boring thing at all. It's like you see them. And didn't he? And then they let off whole paragraphs of stuff he's done. And there's this one segment in the middle where the judge asks, well, why is it important for lawyers to tell the truth or journalists to tell the truth? And I included that with a segment right after that.
I have that clip loaded up. I haven't watched the video part yet.
Okay, the add-on, I broke it and then added on where the Stephen Glass's lawyer gets up, and the judge says, "So, can we believe you?"
All right. Well, here I'll play it. It's about 2 minutes 53 seconds long. But listen to this.
It's a short one. Yeah, a short one.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Judgment.
With being a journalist and with being a lawyer, why would integrity be important to either profession?
It just is, Your Honor. It's a cornerstone of the profession, without which, our position as lawyers is almost valueless. That we are officers of the court, fiduciaries. We aid in the administration of justice. We promote justice. We have a very unique.
Those are very nice sounding words, of course. I agree with you. But in practice, does it really matter?
It absolutely
that one
matters.
has integrity?
It absolutely matters. It not only matters to...
Just take a look at journalism. Why does integrity matter there? Is it because thousands and thousands and thousands of readers just read what has been written by the journalist and trust that what has been said or written is the truth?
Absolutely.
And why would there be any damage if the facts are made up?
It caused immeasurable damage to the journalism profession. He denigrated an entire profession with his lies and deceit.
Well, isn't it also true, as alleged and argued, that many of these articles also impugn real people? The Vernon Jordan article, things that really cut to racial divides in the United States and to people and public figures that I understand were lies.
Absolutely, Your Honor. He talked about real people, real organizations, and he maligned them and spoke about them in a way that cast aspersions on all of them, in a way that is indelibly marked forever in print and out there in the public domain for everyone to read. And
As I understand.
Good morning, Your Honors. John Eisenberg for Stephen Glass. May it please the court.
Mr. Eisenberg,
Yes.
as an officer of the court, should we believe whatever you tell the court?
You must have faith in my
Is that the
integrity.
best you can come up with?
You must. Should you believe everything I say? I certainly would hope so. You have to believe me, of course. If I mislead this court, that is a very serious transgression.
Well, isn't that a major concern here then, Mr. Eisenberg?
Very interesting. Yeah, makes complete sense.
It sounds like an episode of The Twilight Zone or some dystopian police state movie.
Oh, yeah, with the 7 judges up in the front.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could hear the different voices. This one, spoke up saying, well, he wrote about real people, and like Vernon Jordan, and he just totally fabricates stories about them.
Mm-hmm. Well,
he's trashed his career in journalism, but he's also trashed a career in law because of that.
yeah.
Integrity counts.
Well, at least it should.
It should.
Yeah,
it should
that's right.
count.
Thank you. Stand corrected.
It feels like there's a very much a lack of integrity, morals, ethics, and just common decency and values left in many fields nowadays.
You're right. Think about, with we go into the alternative media, pot of soup. If they have more width. They don't. A lot of stories don't have backup stuff. Various concepts. But if something has already been proved false and it keeps getting repeated, that's a problem. But if they were the gatekeepers of truth, and still, held fast, if nobody let anyone get away with lying, you can imagine there wouldn't be too much in the cover-ups out there.
That's
true.
right. And a lot of the times you have to, when there is a cover-up, then you have to cover that cover-up with more of a cover-up. And it just kind of builds and snowballs, I feel like.
Or you'll run into somebody like me who will dig and dig and dig until I catch you, and then I expose you on my show. So it depends. It's got to be a bit, somebody tells me they're in contact with aliens, I let them be. I mean, maybe they just got, maybe they are, maybe they got issues, I don't know. But when
maybe that's the thing, is like maybe they are, maybe they're not, but that's not for me to really decide.
But when it comes to you saying that you have evidence or that I have to listen to you because it's going to affect my life, well, you got to prove that.
A lot of people will tell us something along the lines of, I have the only truth and you have to listen to me to get the facts.
Yeah.
Well, if then you can prove that what they're saying is not the fact, it's counter to the facts, then what?
Exactly.
They move on to the next one, repeat the same game over again.
Exactly, till someone buys it and plays.
And of course, it hits close, hits home with me on the 9/11 issue. It's not that the truth isn't known; it's that it's still being covered up by the majority of the people in the alternative community.
It is, and Doctor, what I wanted to say, I have been, I think Michael mentioned to you, I know Richard Gage, I've had him on my show, and I've always defended your work amongst a lot of the people who I've dealt with, because I used to head up We Are Change, a group here in Florida, and they were all about strictly Richard Gage's information, and I would try to present your information to them, and nobody would have anything to do with it. They just wanted to only believe his or believe their own thoughts, and they refused to believe yours because they thought it to be too fantastic. But not one of them picked up your book to read it. Not one of them watched one of your videos. They refused to look at that information. They guess they would rather believe something else.
Right. What's in the book, no one can refute. I don't have a theory, but to cover up facts, you call it a theory and say it's unsupported.
Very true. Very true.
It's far out. What's far out about evidence?
Exactly right, and that's what I have defended in the past.
Let's not talk about the evidence, because it'll what's the word they use? Discredit us. Let's talk about a different lie.
That's right. Let's talk about a different lie. Exactly. And people call what you wrote in your book, they call it a conspiracy theory, and it's not a conspiracy theory.
A conspiracy is where two or more people get together and conspire. To do, and I don't talk about who did it.
Right. You're just looking at the evidence.
Yeah. So it's not about it can't be about a conspiracy.
And we know that. We know that. I'm just, again, presenting
I appreciate the opportunity to say something about it, because, in my legal case, they're trying to, imply it's a conspiracy theory. No, it doesn't have anything to do with, who did it. It has to do with what happened. And this, the contractors for the NIST report committing science fraud. And I named specific instances of it. For example, Underwriters Lab made two half-scale mock-ups of the floor span, and then two full-scale mock-ups, and cooked them for, set them on fire and cooked them for twice the temperature, twice as long, and still couldn't get it to fail.
Still couldn't get it to fail. That's right.
None of them failed. They had to call it because they ran out of fuel or something. They signed off on the report saying fire did it. But they could not get fire to do it. That's fraud. And you go down the list for each one of them. And, that's another thing. I put my money where my mouth is. I contacted NIST, submitted a request for corrections. That was my act of whistleblower, which qualified me to file a whistleblower case. And then I went ahead and did that. And if somebody strongly believes that thermite was involved, then why, when they submitted their request for correction to NIST, they omitted any mention of thermite evidence or any mention of hot molten metal?
Amazing.
True. And see, when like I said, I had Richard on the show a couple of times, and I have always kind of looked at your work, and I've looked at his work, and I've looked at other people's, I guess you could say, speculation or opinions, hunches, like we were talking about. And of course, Richard primarily talks about things like thermite. I've always kind of thought of that. That's
a theory that doesn't work. It's not evidence. It's a theory.
And the back of my mind, I see it as if, when this first occurred, and of course you get the two sides of the aisle, the people that believe the official narrative and then people that want to believe something else. And I feel like perhaps
the
thermite was there to scoop those people up and to keep them from going deeper into the multi-layered conspiracy. That's what I've always thought. So
the second net. And once you figure that out, you can see it with everything out there.
Absolutely. Michael, what do you think?
I think it's dead on. I mean, I say all the time when we get on the subject of 9/11, I always say that, I have Judy Wood's book here. I've read it. I think it's fascinating, and it's all facts. I agree with you, Judy. You can't dispute it. I can't.
Here's why. And in the words of Eric Larsen, Professor Eric Larsen, who wrote the foreword to my book, he wrote an article on Intrepid and Intrepid Report. And he wrote this statement. He said, "Yet scientific method, as it came into being during the Enlightenment period, is a method of thought known as empiricism, or as the empirical method. Under the terms of empiricism, all conclusions are, must, and can be drawn from observable evidence, and from observable evidence only. Evidence must precede any and every conclusion to be drawn from it. Then, if sound logic governs in the relationship between evidence and the conclusion drawn from it, that conclusion will be irrefutable." There's no mention of theory in there.
Right, because it's not a theory.
And one of the first things that I thought was so peculiar is Stephen Jones talking about the scientific method, and drew people in and reprogrammed them to think you have to run an experiment. First you guess at the answer, and then you run an experiment, or you go cherry picking data to support your theory.
That's
Right, that's what it is. It's cherry picking data to support your theory. It's picking little pieces out that you want to believe. See, that's the problem I see, whether it's journalistic integrity or 9/11 or any other event, is that people look at the world how they want it to be, and they don't look at the world for the way that it is.
Without a dog in the fight, except for truth.
That's correct.
Yeah, I look at things, and this is, I guess, why 40 years of experience in this field make a difference. And that's, someone who has an opinion and an internet connection think overnight they're an expert.
Yeah.
But the discipline of just looking for what the truth is in the material, that you're looking at. And so, I was looking through all of the data that I could find and just, following my intuition and hunches and, curiousness. It was actually something that Stephen Jones said. I'll go ahead and fess up here. Something that Stephen Jones said that got me thinking about something else, which was related to something else, which got me wondering about Earth's magnetic field. That's how I came to looking into that, because everything Stephen Jones said seemed to have a purpose, and about something that needed to be covered up or directed away from. It was kind of interesting. He didn't waste any what do you call it, red herrings. Yeah. Everything was deliberate for a purpose. Like, see this picture, molten metal in the street. Memorize molten metal in the street. When you see this picture, think molten metal in the street. And it was like cue cards, like learning from flashcards to memorize and give
It's like a conditioned response.
Exactly. I don't know if you remember the big noise that Jones made about the aluminum is silvery at all temperatures. And dumb Judy Woods, I don't know why they mispronounced my name, it says that aluminum glows at the same temperature iron glows. Isn't that stupid? What is this all about? This is high school physics. What's the purpose in that? It was really bizarre. I wasn't arguing what that stuff was pouring out the window. You can't tell what it is. The orange stuff pouring out the windows. You don't have evidence of the temperature. You don't have evidence of what material it is, or even evidence if it's for real.
That's very true too. Many of the videos could have been doctored. The photos could have been doctored.
Well, yeah, but you have to, that's why I don't ever depend on one image. It's like I'm there. I'm breathing the dust. I'm looking to my right. I see, Jay Jonah standing there. I'm looking to the left. I see, I just immerse myself in all of the evidence to understand what's consistent with what. And then, like, I have first responder testimony of somebody describing something that, here's a picture of it. And it's kind of fun. But, the orange stuff pouring out, and Jones said, well, it can't be aluminum, so it has to be, because aluminum doesn't glow. So it has to be molten iron. And I said, well, I'm not arguing about what the material is. That's embarrassingly dumb. Like, first time I wrote to Stephen Jones, I said, Stephen, you have a senior moment? And I realized how important it was for him to keep doing this aluminum and silver at all temperatures. It was just weird, but then I eventually figured it out. You know what it is?
What?
Let's see if I can. Do you have the book with you?
I don't have it in front of me, and I was going to have it in front of me before the show, but I don't. I apologize.
Okay. There's this picture. The famous picture of molten metal in the street.
Yeah, and I know what photos you're talking about.
Okay, there's aluminum cladding in that picture. It looks like it's glowing at the end. Now, if aluminum is glowing, it better be a puddle if it's glowing because it's hot. Aluminum melts at about 650 to 660, depending on the alloy, centigrade. It glows white hot at 1200 centigrade. So it would be a puddle if it was glowing.
And not a stream.
No, this is a rigid piece of aluminum cladding.
Oh, okay.
What does that tell you? That it's not glowing because it's hot. It's glowing for a different reason.
Right, and the thing is with your research, what's really always intrigued me is that there always seems to be like a debate between the names like the Jones and Richard Gage and all the big networks and hosts, and it seems like you're the only one that kind of gets left out of that discussion. Everybody kind of writes you off as being incorrect, and they argue about their own opinion.
That was done by a plan from the get-go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When you're even close to the truth, and I think you're dead on, but you even get close, and right away, they write you off as some basket case, and they have their trolls who are, a lot of them are paid to go online, and if there's a Judy Wood forum, some people talking about your evidence, right away that troll will
or people
come
are brainwashed into having it sort of like a reflex, because they hear that she's an idiot, and in the past year, every show I've heard Gage on, he gives, and you could clear this up with me, Ryan. Were you sent a script before Gage was on your show?
As a matter of fact, I was, but I told them I wasn't going to use it.
Well, there's something I think in this last show that you did bring up, something about are you willing to work with other researchers?
Oh yeah, did you listen to it?
Yeah, there's that's something like that is on each one of his past shows the past year that I've listened to. I haven't listened to many of them, but
it's the same type of questioning.
Yep, and so that's why I felt that you were led into that. And then from there he says, well, there's people like Judy Wood who, and that gives him free rein to trash me.
Right. Well,
she denies this, she denies that, and she denies.
I've known Richard for a couple of years, and when I first had met him, the first thing that I was talking to them about, because they didn't want to talk about anything else except that information, but I always tried to get them to understand that there's more things involved than just thermite. There's other layers to the onion, if you will.
Here's the problem with the thermite thing. You start out to determine what happened. You need to, look at what happened. The first step number one, what happened? Then step number two is how it happened. You can't say how it happened if you don't know what it is that happened. Like the Casey Anthony event. What happened? They hadn't solved that. So they couldn't say how it happened.
Right, so that's the speculation part again, right?
Yep, so if this is a really interesting trick, how to run any cover-up. If you get people to immediately start arguing about how it happened, they have to assume what it is.
Very
and each
true.
one has a different assumption, and nobody solved what happened, so they can't solve the problem ever if they're doing that.
They're just constantly bickering about it.
Yep. So I start out looking at what happened. And, then from there you look into the destructive mechanism. For example, is it kinetic energy? Like a big hammer, lots of little hammers, a missile, a bomb that blows things into chunks, gravity collapse, things hitting something. And that can be eliminated by the evidence. I don't care about what missile model or what bullet, or what pea shooter, or I'm not getting into nickel and diming exactly what weapon it was. You don't need to. It's not a kinetic energy device. That the building was not smashed to bits with kinetic energy. So that's why pulverizing doesn't describe it. The particles were so fine. You can't do that with a rock and a hammer, beat on something and make it that fine. It was the size of DNA.
It was like vaporized.
Nope.
Not vaporized?
Nope. That implies high heat. And so thermal energy can also be ruled out. The paper blowing around, it didn't burn up.
That's
you had
true.
14 people in stairwell B. They looked up and saw blue sky and then walked out.
Yeah, I remember that one of the videos that I watched with you, and I think that was the second time I had heard it, and it really didn't click with me until I heard you speaking about it, but yeah.
That's amazing.
So also they didn't get beaten to death or cooked to death. And so thermal energy. Also, if you have thermal energy, it causes certain pieces of things to happen that didn't happen. Let's see. If I can, my favorite reminder of that here. Something that was missing on 9/11.
Yeah.
People talk about this news. I had somebody write to me saying, "I know it did it. I know it did it. It's this new weapon I've just discovered or invented or know about, and it makes things hotter, 60 times hotter than the surface of the sun." Do you really think that Southern Manhattan was that hot and nobody saw it?
Exactly. It's amazing. I still can't get over the paper not burning up and the people looking up at the blue sky. There's just so much evidence that says that there was some kind of directed energy.
What I mean by directed energy, instructed energy. The energy was directed to do something differently, remotely, not contact, not like hammer hitting something. It wasn't thermal energy either, but it was instructed to do something differently than it normally does. It was also directed to do it within a certain zone, and I'm categorizing it as directed energy. Not, let's say it once and for all, rule out laser beams from outer space, because that destructive mechanism would be thermal energy. The buildings weren't cooked to death. So it can't be a laser beam from outer space. So it rules out. Because I'm talking about the destructive mechanism, not, Acme Weapon XXX from aisle 17 from the Acme Weapons Store.
I'm glad you say that, because a lot of times people, even if they're open to your research, they'll think that that's what it was, that it was some type of advanced space weapon.
I don't ever say where it was. I don't know where it was. Right. But I know who to ask.
Yeah.
And if my court case had gone forward, good chance we would know more than we currently know. But that's another thing. Only 5 people supported my case. The judges would be, suicidal if they allowed the case to go forward. If only 5 people supported it. Yeah. People in the I know Richard Gage banned people from his group who mentioned it.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it is a guy, Abraham Rodriguez, and he started posting around on forums. And a guy, Mark Graham, wrote to him and said, "Here, we'll give you some money to stop posting around." Because he said he donated $100 to Gage's group, and they said, "Here, we'll give you $100 if you quit posting that." Interesting. He's now Dr. Abe Rodriguez. He was a medical student at the time. And he even had, it was spring of 2011, he had Gage in his town, and he went to his talk to ask him afterwards, why'd you ban me from your group? And afterwards he asked him about the seismic signal. And Gage said, "Well, I don't know anything about seismology," or something like that. Wait a minute, he's a architect in San Francisco and doesn't have any understanding of seismographs? What's wrong with this picture?
Well, I had him scheduled once in 2008, and he never showed up that night, and I never pursued him again because the way I seen it was, I wasn't big enough at the time, so, he could just skip out on me. So I kind of held a little grudge there and never asked him back.
See, I've always liked to get people, even if it's not necessarily based 100% in relation to what we're talking about tonight on fact, I still like to get other people on the show. That's why I've been trying to get you, Dr. Wood, on my show for it's been a couple of years now. I think I've been emailing you occasionally. I actually have a lot of problem with my emails. It gets hacked a lot. So But anyway, I really wanted to talk to you for a while and discuss this stuff.
What do you think of Mr. Gage on your show claiming that she denies first responder testimony of sound of explosions?
Right, I remember that.
But he said that. He says that at just about each show. He picks 3 things, and that's his favorite one. To the point that when I was on Coast to Coast recently, George Norrie, a caller called in and said, "Why do you ignore the first responder testimony of?" I said,
So
I don't ignore it. Right. He gets people to memorize that, and then they assume it's true. So what I did is pull out my book and start reading. Here I could read it now too.
Yeah, Nori, he's a paid puppet. He does what he's told.
Oh yeah, he kept calling it a theory. I should have said, George, there. What did you get a degree in engineering and science?
Yeah, you got it in the Middle East.
Looking for my glasses. I don't know where they went. That's strange.
Yeah.
Huh. It's Well, I'll try to read Jessica with him. I know that there's a kitty that was trying to toss him around before, and I took him away from him, and I don't know where I put him. Okay, here it is. Firefighter Todd Heaney, or here's firefighter Patrick Sullivan. His boss asked him, there was a deputy chief's rig on fire. Wait, no, he asked him about his experience. So he answers, there was a deputy chief's rig on fire that was extended to 113's rig. There was a big ambulance, like a rescue company truck, but it wasn't a rescue company truck. It was a huge ambulance. It must have had Scott bottles or oxygen bottles on it. These were all going off. You would hear air go boom, and they were exploding. So he stretched the line, tried to put that out. You can only use booster water. Okay. And firefighter Todd Heaney says, I remember getting a drink of water out of the cooler there, and then we just started to put out car fires. It's kind of funny. It's like, nothing else to do. Put out car fires, and the rigs were going, ambulances, I mean. There must have been 50 of these things burning heavily. The Scott cylinders and the oxygen cylinders were all letting go. They were all blowing up left and right. And here's emergency medical technician, Renee Davila. His boss asked him, at this point, was your vehicle lost? He said, basically, all we had to do is go around the building, come around, but it took longer than usual because you're walking in this, like this shit. Because you move and it's all soot, like heavy dust. This is around the Millennium, where he's parked. But while we're walking, I realized we only have 2 people. I see my vehicle. The seats were covered. I've still got my bag. I hold it like a trophy, like people collect basketballs. I haven't touched whatever the force was. It was so strong it went inside the bag. Sounds interesting. And he says, but we were there. Vehicle 219 was destroyed. His boss says, well, was it on fire? What? He answers. Boss says, was it on fire? He answers, fire, we saw the sucker blow up. We heard a boom. So there's 3 guys right there.
Right. Well, when he would have said something, well, when he did say that on my show, denying first responders' testimony, it's not really like he's specifying a particular testimony. It's as if it's that you're denying all of them, and I mean that's just too big of a generalization.
Right. If I wanted to play that game in reverse, which I don't, because I'd say, well, he denies the toasty cars. He denies the circular holes in the windows. He denies the inappropriate seismic signal.
But that doesn't get us anywhere.
Right. It's like, I felt like saying when I'm going on a show, well, let's see, I don't talk about laser beams from outer space. I don't talk about scalar weapons. I don't talk about, okay, do we have any time left to talk about what I do talk about?
Oh, yeah.
Well, see, those other things get entertainment value.
Well, it's amazing. Oh, she has a theory that it's scalar weapons, or she has a theory that it was this or that. And there's a pretty wide variety of them. The funniest one is men from Mars or the Holy Spirit. Webster Tarpley said that.
Well, what I find funny is like Richard Gage, I was listening to a clip, and what I find funny about some of these guys is that they'll shoot down your evidence, your facts. They'll shoot it down, but then when they're asked, well, then how did this happen or that happen, and
they can't answer it. No, because that's that reflex action.
yeah. So like on Jesse's show there, Jesse Ventura, he says, well, then you tell me how the car melted, and the tree right next to the car wasn't affected
Leafy,
at all.
bushy green tree.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
And all the sea of unburned paper.
Yeah, unburned paper, so much so that they supposedly found Muhammad Atta's passport in the rubble.
yeah.
Or the melted concrete. It doesn't melt and fuse. It's like crumbles. But, the meteorite thing, it's referred to as a meteorite.
Yeah.
Did you realize it's got unburned paper in it, fused in it?
Really?
I don't think I've seen that.
It's not from high heat. I had 4 of those pictures. I had to pick 2 and put in my book, and I picked the one that said expenses or expense account or something on the paper. But that's it got bumped off from the meteorite thingy. It's this big blob of a whole bunch of different stuff fused together. But if you know the melting point of different materials, you can see that things don't work. Like they have these coins that are all melted together or fused together. Sorry, incorrect word there. They're fused together, and you look and you say, well, gee, if it melted because of heat, then the pennies are zinc basically with a copper coating. Zinc has got about the lowest melting, one of the lowest melting temperatures. So why is the penny still there? Yeah, there's questions like that. Or also, here's Assistant Chief Fire Marshal Richard McCahey, reading from page 153. This is after the building dustified and covered them. He says, somebody, which helped me, I don't know who it was, after somebody said, I can't breathe, somebody, I don't know which direction it came from, screamed out, don't panic. Just relax. It's not smoke. It's just dust. Just relax. And at that point, that's when I started to realize my mouth was filling up with this like sandball. All of a sudden, I realized when whoever said that, I'm starting to pay attention to my surroundings. I realized that there was no heat. You could breathe. Stuff was going in your mouth, but it was cool air coming in, and you could breathe it. So I said maybe he was right.
Dr. Wood, I have a question for you. Maybe this has nothing to do with...
And one more thing. Fires consume the oxygen or displace the oxygen out of the air. So that's the big problem why you can't breathe in a smoke environment. These guys could breathe. But, filled with dust, so they have to stick their face in their armpit and use their shirt for a filter. But, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you, have you ever seen, maybe you have or have not done research into anything else, have you seen... an event or a type of destruction like the Twin Towers happen anywhere else in the world ever? Or do you know about anything else like that?
Yeah, I haven't, of course, researched them absolutely in detail, but I do have questions about several, events, different place. Again, you have your hunches, but then you need to, sort through it. But of course, there's the Oklahoma City thing. It had toasted cars there, too, down the block.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually heard about that. I have to admit I haven't dug into it that deep, but yeah.
But you have cylindrical, from ground to roof, cylindrical chunks missing. Bombs go spherically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's questions like that don't seem to make, they cause questions like Khobar Towers. It's like the whole front was off the building. Like somebody took a knife and sliced down from top to bottom.
So then can we agree that then this is at least technology that's been used that we don't think they have? I mean,
that's my favorite one. She can't prove such technology exists. I don't have to. The proof's right there.
Yeah.
You can see the stuff flying through the air and turning into dust in mid-flight.
Well, see, people want an image. I think they want you to like name the weapon.
Yeah, Acme, model XXX or model 17 from the Acme weapons store.
You say that too many times, people are going to start believing it.
Yeah, but we know there's no Acme weapons store. I think that's a pretty good giveaway there. But you see, the stuff turning into dust in mid-flight. So you don't even see solid parts landing. It's streaming dust, and pretty soon it's out of solid material to turn to dust. It just leaves a dust trail. And, therefore we know technology exists that can do that. That can do what got done.
Well, in relationship to the name of the book, Where Did the Towers Go? Maybe I read it in your book, or maybe I just heard it somewhere else. I really honestly forget. It's been a couple of years since I've heard it. That perhaps there was some type of, I don't know how they actually got rid of all the material. I know they ship a lot of it off to China when FEMA
I'll call you on that one. Show me the receipts.
Very true, very true. And I'll be happy to be called out on it.
But by noon on 9/11, or by 5 p.m., I've got a picture that shows Building 7 still standing with fumes coming out of it. And where the angle of the camera was, it was in corner of Liberty and Church, Liberty and West Street, approximately, a little bit south of that intersection, looking towards Building 7. They should be, Tower 1 earlier that day would have been blocking your view of Building 7. And so Building 1's gone. And you see, everything down to about, street level. There's probably a one thickness of some outer wheat checks, those prefab units that the outer wall was made of, laying in the street in front of, I think, WFC2. But it's not a lot of material there. These are 210-story buildings.
That's what I was getting at, is that the material that was left over was not adequate to the actual size and structure of the building.
And see, this picture is before 5 p.m. on 9/11, because you see Building 7 is still there. So you know what day it is, that it's 9/11. So did they ship it all to China? I'm not, saying they didn't, but did they teleport it there? Or,
yeah. There's a misunderstanding, because what I was really getting at, I was talking about whether that happened or not. That I was talking about that as something that happened later. I was just talking about maybe when the trucks came in to get some of the material wherever they shipped it to, if they did do that. I didn't know if there was like a process by which they went through to try to estimate a weight of the material.
But see, the problem is that the truthers have been given these talking points of, they removed the evidence from the crime scene. Big, bad, awful government, removing the evidence from the crime scene and shipping it to China. And this rumor got going, and where's the evidence to it? Just like steel-toed boots melting.
I haven't heard that one.
Oh, I even got the clip of it. FEMA workers saying that I hear that it's 1,100 degrees on the pile, and the workers' steel-toed boots are melting after just a couple of hours.
I don't remember.
And Stephen Jones repeated that one over and over again. I mean, these are FEMA workers; these aren't physicists, But Stephen Jones repeat that again and again. People would repeat it, and until I started saying, "Well, when my steel oven is melting, the turkey inside's more than well done." It's got a charge. But there's no reports of burned feet. And I like what, after Jesse Ventura had read my book, he was on Alex Jones's show. Alex, you got to read this book. Anyway, Alex Jones was trying to push the high, temperature business. And there's a picture of my book that really hit home with him. There's a pair of pictures where they have these oxy-fuel hoses draped, for quite some distance over the debris field. Where somebody's got a cutting torch working on something. And Jesse says, "Well, Alex, if it was that hot, you wouldn't dare do that now, would you? Would you?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Would you stand there with an oxygen tank, and hoses draped across, super hot ground?
Yeah, exactly.
So where's this idea that it's hot? Also, where are the steam explosions? There's no evidence. It's just hearsay, rumors.
Right. It's like people, they for whatever they want other people to believe, they get images, they get pictures, and then they pick something in the picture to divert your attention away from the truth, and then they just use that picture as evidence when in fact it's not evidence for what they're suggesting.
Well, I think the important thing with this type of research, and that this is something that the novice, person with an opinion and an internet connection, doesn't understand. That I went to school for many years to do this. It's like how many years beyond high school does somebody study to become a radiologist? Just to look at pictures, right? Mm-hmm. X-ray pictures. They're just looking at pictures, but it's very specialized, looking to be able to analyze material properties in images. I mean, that's my expertise in optical methods. So and being able to put the story together. But the biggest problem I think people have is that delayed gratification. They want to jump to the answer and guess the answer, like a multiple choice test, without understanding how to solve the problem.
Right, and you know what? I actually think that is kind of a good example of perhaps Richard Gage's architects and engineers, because there's architects, engineers, pilots, chemists, and supposedly physicists, and they're supposed to be the experts, right? But at the same time, you're not on the documentary. Explosive evidence experts speak out. I would think that you're a pretty big, well-known voice and an expert in this field, and you weren't on that documentary. They refused to listen to you.
Right. It's they don't look. It's whoever. Actually, it's stated in the in their what do you call it? Mission statement or something like that.
On the website, yeah.
Yeah, and the only one, when they call for new investigation, only one that considers bombs in the building. Nothing else.
Only one that considers their predetermined point of view from what they already believe.
Yeah. So you'll never get that. Because any reputable person is not going to, do any kind of research where they start out with the answer they have to prove. That's the political method.
Is that kind of like the Casey Anthony thing again? I feel like.
Yeah. It's not solving the problem. It's not a real. And actually, if you want a new investigation, here it is. 544-page book.
Yeah, and I feel like go ahead.
Yeah, so that's what my book is, and it'll stand up to any kind of scrutiny, to the point that nobody can refute it. So what they do, they make up stories about it. Oh, she totally denies this. She only covers 2 phenomena in her whole book, or she is out anomaly hunting to find something to justify her theories on space beams.
Right, I think that's why you don't get as much airtime than you deserve, is because people write you off, or they set you to the side because you have such a strong voice and you have the evidence that they can't dispute it. So they're just like, I'm not going to listen.
Yeah, and it started out that way. It's that they got the handlers get to the microphone first, and they. The first thing that Stephen Jones was saying is, "Oh, she attacked me, poor, pitiful me. She attacks people viciously. She viciously attacks me, and just vehemently." And somebody called me up and said, "You need to quit attacking Stephen Jones." I said, "Oh, I'm attacking him? Please tell me what did I do so I can stop doing it." "I don't know, but I know you attack him." Yeah. I had never met the guy. How am I attacking him?
Talking points, repeaters, and just all around, I don't know what the appropriate word would be.
So this is what our culture is kind of come to.
It is, and another thing is, it's just like the 9/11 photos, and just like we were talking about Casey Anthony, when they would show, I don't have TV either, but I remember when I went to a friend's house, they had the trial on, their parents did, and there was these images, they'd show the images of the child, and that's supposed to make you feel sad and make you feel as if
you gotta go get somebody for it. We gotta get somebody.
Right, and that means Nancy Grace is, she cares and she's telling the truth, because then she comes onto the TV next and she starts talking about how it's a horrible situation. So they use the pictures. It's a reflex emotional action that when you see the picture, you think she's guilty automatically because you feel for the child.
Yep. It's like NLP is the same type of thing. What are the words that are used to describe my research? Fringe, far out.
Yep.
Why?
I don't describe it that way, so I can't tell you, Michael. What do you think?
But you get the point that it's the words are very controlling. That people don't even know why. It's like, she attacks me. Jones saying, she attacks me, vehemently attacks me. They don't care what the evidence is. In fact, there's no evidence. They just know, it immediately goes into their brain as, oh, bad person.
Right. It's kind of almost like I mean, this is a completely different subject, but it's very much like the paranormal. People group anything they can't understand into the paranormal. And I feel like that's what they do with your research. They can't understand it, so they group it into the fringe.
No. It's I don't think it's the people who categorize it. They're given this description, they just repeat it. It's a talking point.
And come to think of it, every time we've talked about 9/11, Ryan, you and I on this show,
Yes.
There's some guy who apparently wrote some book, and he claims that Richard Gage and Judy Wood's wrong, and he keeps spamming in our comment sections on Spreaker. I keep getting rid of him.
Why doesn't he? If he feels like he's correct, why doesn't he file a legal case like I did?
Exactly.
Well, we'll see. Logically, that's how we think, but these people are just trolls trying to get at us, I think.
Well, for that matter, why hasn't Gage filed a QTAM case?
Very true.
Yeah.
Why didn't, when he did his request for correction to NIST, why didn't he include thermite or molten metal?
Yeah. If this guy's right, then why isn't he on Coast to Coast instead of spamming in my comment sections?
I like the phrase that you used earlier about it's the second net. I really think that description, for at least people starting out.
Somebody wrote a book with that name. I can't take the credit for that term, but I think it's right on, and it's very controlling. It applies with so many things. When I got into studying 9/11 evidence, and then here comes the thermite. I started seeing that the grassy knoll about JFK, that's thermite. Without even studying anything
Very
about
true,
JFK
very
thing.
true.
It gives people some place to go. It never gets proved or disproved. It just, that's why it doesn't get taken to court. Because they don't want it disproved. It's just a holding thing.
Yeah, thermite's kind of like you're right, it's like the grassy knoll. It's like Roswell, 1947. It's kind of like the de facto unofficial / official alternative narrative to everything that's happened that's been a supposed conspiracy within the history of the world.
Right. It's so easy. It's, I guess, something to do with human nature, and it's just weirdos like me that don't go for
buy
that. Because I'm not a joiner. I'm not I don't need to conform. Because so many people are afraid to be an outcast.
Right.
Exactly.
What are others going to think of me?
Yeah. Right. And I think at first certain ones, looking back at how this thing developed, I was naive. I think some thought that, if you chew her out enough, she'll go away. Because I think that's how most people, like Fetzer threatened to destroy me.
Oh yeah.
Destroy my reputation. Like if you keep talking about Hutchison, I can't save you from what's going to happen to you. First, I thought that was a death threat, but Andrew thought it was a threat for my reputation, and it turned out he was right.
And that comes to me. That comes right out of that troll playbook too, because I had a guy, we'll just call him Lee for sake of argument, who has said the same exact thing to me. It's amazing. I'm gonna destroy your career, and oh yeah, I know, because you're Lex Luthor and I'm Superman. They're in this like fantasy land.
This is the same guy that came after me and told me that, kind of on the hush hush, acting like he was my friend, that he had the only truth, the only information. I had to follow him to get to the truth.
So here's how we need to deal with stuff like that, or whoever. As soon as you found they presented something that's not true, they're done.
That's right. That's
something that's, my book, as you can remember, Michael, that it's everything is referenced.
It is.
And
everything's sourced.
Now, see, another thing is, and I wrote a book, and I remember, I'm like a 740-page book, and I covered a lot of different things. 9/11, I barely touched on at all, because I'm more into mythology and symbolism. That's more my specialty. But I touched on so many different subjects in the book, and he looked at the book, and he said that there was like a typo here and an error here, like just in a couple of just a letter, or I didn't type the letter out or something. So he used that as justification to say that everything that I had in the book was incorrect. And see, a lot of people do the same thing. They'll take one kernel of what they call, they'll call it, I mean, it's like it's a typo, but they call it a lie, as if everything I've ever said was a lie, as if they can disprove one thing I've said, that everything I say is incorrect. I feel like people maybe try to do that with you as well.
But they don't have anything. They try to they make something up. Like, nothing in my book can be refuted, so the stuff that's made up about it. Like, she totally ignores all first responder testimony. Well, it's like, at least 100 of them, and I haven't counted them all.
It's in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of them.
We've got a call. We've got Ira on the line. Ira, welcome aboard.
Hey, Ira.
Hey there.
Hey.
Dr. Wood, I wanted to say that I think your work is fantastic. I think that you are dead on with the things that you say. I think one of the things that is really important about the work that you're doing and the things that you've come forward with is that instead of generalizing and trying to come up with a general theory like a lot of the other theorists out there try to do.
Sorry, just not the other. I'm not in the category with them. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Okay,
no,
sorry.
I understand. I understand that. I wasn't trying to categorize you that way. What I was trying to say is that you are. The advantage that you have is that you are a specialist. You have focused in with a laser pointer, basically saying, look at this right here. This is enough to say that there is something wrong with the official story. Why don't we question even just this?
Yeah, I'm not. As another thing is, I'm not. My goal isn't to disprove the official story. It's like, here's what happened,
and that's it.
Yeah. Here's what happened. Here's what I know that I know. I don't have everything covered, but I have the data there.
And I think I fall into this category too. But when we start kind of talking about disproving or trying to prove something in relationship to something else, that's when we kind of get back to that argument we talked about earlier, where there's that bickering of what we should call it as opposed to what actually happened. Right,
and I can say whatever the gizmo was. I can say what it does.
And that's the important enough question.
That's the most important question.
Just coming forward with that is just enough, and why isn't that enough for everybody else?
Well, that's what it matters. It's not. Actually, I have a particular section I wrote in the book. Probably the most important section, at least for me, my sanity, is about people. Because I have all this data, and that people are going to come out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, it was this, it was that." I know it was HARP. She's so stupid. She doesn't know it was HARP. I know it was HARP. I know it was scalar weapons. I know it was this. I know it was that. And I actually wrote a section of the book. Let me start with this. Empirical evidence is the truth that theory must mimic. I have repeated this statement several times in this book because its importance cannot be overemphasized. In today's culture of oversimplification and standardized multiple choice testing, many have an impulse to name a known technology, thermite, TNT, RDX, nukes, progressive collapse, HARP, scalar weapons, torsion physics, Nazi bell, etc., instead of looking at the evidence that the use of one technology or another left behind. It is like someone trying to force a square peg into a round hole because no one they know has ever seen a square peg, much less given it a name. So the possibility of a square peg's existence is not considered, even as they struggle to force it into a round hole. Some people feel they're being more scientific when they use the name of a known technology to describe unknown phenomena, but the opposite is true. Such an approach omits evidence that does not fit any known technology. For some people, the term HARP, or the term scalar weapons, or the term Nazi bell, is used like a catch-all weapon that can be blamed for whatever evidence needs to be explained away, like the ultimate boogeyman, and without their even knowing what these weapons can do. Furthermore, if the full capabilities are classified information, they would not be publicly known. And a weapon that could produce all of the effects we saw in 9/11 would certainly not be in the public domain, no matter whose weapon it was. For these reasons, I've tried to focus on the phenomena, not a trendy name of a particular technology. The evidence must come before the theory. It is understanding what the technology can do that matters, not the name of it. For these reasons, I've resisted the impulse to name a known technology and have instead focused on the physical evidence. There will likely be those who will not be as successful in resisting the impulse to put a name of a known technology on the producer of this evidence. This naming, however, will only pull a veil of mystery over it.
Ira?
And I think that actually is the best way that you can put things. Honestly, that is great.
I think that sums it up.
It does.
Thanks.
I wanted to say too, as far as the neuro-linguistic programming that you were speaking about, I was trained in neuro-linguistic programming back when I was a corporate boy. So, and because of that, I'm able to catch when it happens. You know, like I'm able to, I guess, evade it in my own mind because I know the tricks to how it's done. And what you're referring to there with the Nazi bell and the harp and all of that, that actually is a very distinct form of neurolinguistic programming. If you can cause someone to categorize something in their brain, to put it into a little compartment in their brain, and this is the picture that they come up with as soon as you mention 9/11, for instance, then
they start
at that
imagining
point,
all the evidence to support their theories. Yeah.
right, and they actually will do everything that they can to avoid looking for the actual truth of things. They'll stop asking questions and start actually just looking for the evidence to fit their theory.
Actually, you know what my term for HARP is? What it stands for?
What?
High Amplitude Advancement of Real Propaganda. I mean, think about it. You know, it's classified. That what it really does, they tell us something, but what does it really do? We don't know.
Right. You know, and it gets worse than that. When I went to UCF, not the actual college. I didn't go to college there, but I went there one day for not a protest. I handed out information about things like September 11th, just to get people to ask questions. And I actually not consulted, but I went over to the United Nations group and the Republican Democratic booth because they're the only people out there talking anything about politics. So I talked to them a little bit and gave them a little bit of information, just, you know, here's my radio show and stuff like that. And these kids, Dr. Wood and Ira and Michael, actually told me, for example, about Building 7. They said Building 7 and the World Trade Center, they came down because of propane explosions in the basement. I mean, this is how brainwashed people really are today.
You've heard the story about a nuke bomb in the basement.
Oh, yeah. Heard about that too.
I say, well, you know those 14 guys in Stairwell B where they say, ride 'em cowboys on top of nuke?
Yeah.
You know, it's so amazing that it's all about jumping to an answer and getting the answer without solving the problem. I don't think they know how to problem solve.
I think actually the biggest problem that I have as far as it all is concerned is that even though there's all these questions that have never been answered, the propaganda machine has been used to go forward into us basically devastating the rest of the world because these questions aren't answered and because so much of an open window and an open opportunity has been used, you know, to, I guess, never let a good crisis go to waste, you know?
But the thing I've also come to learn about 9/11 is that, you know, it was an attack on human consciousness. People's thinking was shut down. When I came into campus that day, these two faculty members who were talking, and I don't mean to, you know, be derogatory towards them at all, by no means. It's just that this is just, you know, the people I knew. This had happened to them. They're like, as though mentally they had a pitchfork in their hand. We got to go take them out. We got to take them all out. We got to go get somebody. And I'm thinking, how weird is that? They're out for revenge. That's first on the list. Revenge against, you know, somebody, whatever name they're given, and they got to go take them out. And also, I've seen this, you know, how easily that happens. Every year around 9/11, the anniversary time, they ramp up the trauma again. Like this year it was with this ISIS thing. And showing beheadings on, you know, the internet and so forth. And to get people all worked up like the sky's falling and panic, panic, panic. And I've also seen that the lowest, you know, animal instinct is like revenge, and when they get into revenge mode, they shut off logical thinking. Like, dogs will fight to the death. You don't really know why they're fighting. They just keep going at it. The revenge mode. So if you get people in revenge mode, they shut off logical thinking. You can do all sorts of stuff to them. You can, have them go to war. You can have, they don't think.
Right. They feel like they've been personally attacked.
Right. And you gotta go get somebody.
And that's, again, the form of programming that happens. I mean, it's like...
It's animal instinct that gets used. It's a, quality. I think it's just a really low-level animal instinct.
Yeah, it's fight or flight.
Right. It shuts off logical thinking.
Right. Well, they associate themselves with the United States as a country, and if the United States is under attack, they're under attack, so that's their territory.
They gotta go get somebody.
Yeah, so someone has to pay the price.
Right. It doesn't matter who it is. So, let's look at this, the thermite movement. It wasn't bin Laden, driving airplanes or directing people to drive airplanes in the building. It was bin Laden sending people to put thermite in the building. Or, no, George Bush sending, we got to go get George Bush. We got to go get the U.S. government. Without even knowing where the connection is. It's like, got to go get somebody.
It's a reflex action to emotional stress.
Right. And if there was no cover-up to 9/11, the crime would be solved the next day. So it isn't the crime that's caused all these problems we've had with our, rights taken away and getting underwear searched at the airport or whatever. It's the cover-up that's done this.
That's true.
You've got it precisely. Exactly. And you're right. It is the fight or flight instinct that's being triggered. And you can see how they use that to their advantage. I mean, for instance, right after 9/11 ended up happening, you had the GOP convention where somebody on YouTube, for instance, they put a video together where they strung together all of the times that the different people on stage would say either 9/11 or terrorist.
Terrorist or
and it
weapon.
Lasted for almost 10 minutes of just 9/11, 9/11, 9/11, terrorism, 9/11, 9/11. And it was never a repeating instance of it. And from that, I mean, you can see how the programming happens to the general population. They go into this instinct of fight or flight, and now they're programmed to say, okay, that's what we need to go fight, or that's what we need to be afraid of.
And they don't question it. They just go for it.
Exactly.
Right. They're like keywords. As soon as they hear the word terrorism, as soon as they hear the word biological weapon, mushroom cloud.
It's just like when I say the for the children. Whenever you hear for the children, it generates a pre-programmed response in the brain that makes you go into immediate fight mode. You're no longer fight or flight. That's a fight mode response because we have this inherent desire to see the children safe. So they use that for gun control and weapons and on and on.
Kissing babies and political
yes.
Right
campaigns.
on.
Yes. Exactly.
It's all about that image.
Yeah.
It's like you get associated with the baby. You get associated with being innocent. That means you must be telling the truth.
So Ira, what do you think about starting this campaign of holding people accountable who've lied?
I think it's absolutely justified and it needs to be done. It's essential that something like that needs to be done. I try to do everything that I can to tell the truth myself. If I have found a truth, I will state it that this is the truth that I found. And if I'm called out on it later, then I'll admit, hey, I was wrong on that, And I think that if more people did that, we'd be in a lot better position as far as the media is concerned. But the media is only concerned about its numbers at this point, so you're never going to see that.
Well, which media are you talking about?
I'm more meaning the mainstream media, but the alternative media is getting that way as well.
Well,
I think it's even worse.
Well, it's like sports, the best teams hold each other accountable to do their job, and that's what we need to do too, and that's what I do. And some people don't like it, and I don't really care, but there's people who think, oh, they're always fighting with someone. It's not a fight. It's me stating the facts. And and them denying it.
Right. It's like what Dr. Wood is doing there with the going in with the laser pointer of this one or two things and saying, look, this is what needs to be looked at,
Right. Well, the friction's caused by them denying it, not from the information that's presented as factual.
Well, they don't always deny it.
Yeah,
they
bingo. I can't tell voices apart. Who just said that?
That was
Ryan.
Yeah, that was a good one. That's like if somebody thinks my information is hard to take, why? Because it isn't part of there's another vision that comes to mind. I use the term b-ball. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like little league sports.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's like bees swarming around a hive. No strategy. They just go where the ball goes. There's a lot of stuff with media. It's like that. With like thermite. That's the bee-ball. People don't think. They just follow wherever the ball goes.
Right.
I'm just thinking about that right now. That's probably an explanation I've actually been looking for myself. I've always kind of tried to explain that, how people just in mass they huddle and then they just kind of follow like sheep that particular ball, if you will, from one side of the room to the other, then to that side of the room to the other, just wherever it goes, they follow it.
I call the groups like that. They're organized. I call them collection agencies. They collect people.
Yeah, collect them in that second net again.
Yep.
Well, we as human beings, we do still have kind of a base herd mentality, and whatever shepherd sort of fits into your mode of thinking, that's the shepherd that you're going to follow, and you're always going to follow their lead no matter where they go, even if they're walking you off of a cliff.
Or people know that something's wrong. The official story, and so they get on the internet and they look for another choice, and then they jump on whatever one that one is. But they don't stop to think they're giving false choices. Or somebody else who's questioning the official story, they must be my teammate, my soulmate. So, okay, if you want to control the second net, you just say the official story is bogus, and then you get followers wherever you're going to go.
That's right, and I think another issue is that a lot of times people, whether they're growing up religious and they rebel against that, so they become atheists, they go to the immediate opposite of what they believed before. So if they believe the official story, now they think it's untrue, they jump to the immediate opposite. Now they become a 9/11 truther.
Right, it's extremism in both cases.
It's a strict dichotomy.
Yep. Well, hey, we've got to take a break here. We've kind of skipped one, which is okay.
Okay.
But we better take our break. Ira, you got anything else you want to hang on the line?
I'll go ahead and hang up, but I just wanted to say, Dr. Wood, thank you so much for the work that you do.
Well,
Ryan and Michael, thanks for having her on.
Have you read my book?
I have read parts of it. I have not been able to read all of it. I had it for just a couple of days, and I wasn't able to get through all of it. So I definitely want to, though.
Yeah, get your library to get a copy, or if you order one.
Yep. Thank you so much, guys.
Hey,
All
thanks
right.
for calling.
Thank you, Ira.
Thanks, Ira.
All right, folks, this is The Last Frequency. I'm Michael Vera with Ryan Gable. We have Judy Wood with us. She's going to be with us till about the 11:30 mark, it looks like. So call in when we come back if you got questions or comments, or you could PM me in the Late Night in the Midlands.com chat room, and I could get to your questions, hopefully. So we'll see. Folks, we'll be back in just a few minutes. And we're joined by Judy Wood. And Judy, I've got you linked up on the website, but if you want to get out links and any other information, by all means, go right ahead.
Let's see. My main website is I'm sure I'm turned on. drjudywood.com. That's drjudywood.com. And at the top of that page is a video of a presentation I did in Holland. It's good to watch. And the book you can order through wheredidthetowersgo.com. It's hard to type it without putting spaces in the words, but wheredidthetowersgo.com.
Okay. All right.
Let me mention something about the title of the book. Yeah, Where Did the Towers Go? And it's the subtitle is Evidence of Directed Free Energy Technology on 9/11. And trolls try to twist everything they can around, saying, "Oh, that's a theory." No, evidence isn't a theory. The book is evidence of what happened on 9/11. It's evidence of a technology that can do what got done, and it's also that technology doesn't have to be used for evil purposes. It can be used for good purposes. It can be used for free energy. So this is evidence of free energy.
Very true, very true. People like to look at it in a negative light. But it's a matter of perspective. Yep. It's how you want to believe.
Right. So it isn't that, a free energy, battery pack was a free energy device. No. It's that this is the evidence of what happened is also evidence that you don't have to go to so and so's lab and hope that their experiment works to prove that free energy exists. Everybody around the world is capable of knowing it exists. They saw what happened.
One of the things that people have asked me about your work, and something I wanted to ask you about as well, is what about the hurricane that was very close to New York City that morning? What part of the scenario did that play?
I don't know, but what I do know is that a few people knew it was there. In my book, I have pictures of weather reports 10 to 15 minutes before the North Tower got its hole. And it's, it doesn't show the hurricane on the weather maps. And then I've also got the same pictures with the location of the actual hurricane superimposed. It was right there. Why didn't they show there was a hurricane right there? Just outside of just off the end of Long Island. A lot of people say, "Oh, it was way out to sea." Well, the eye was way out to sea, but this thing is humongous. Is more cyclonic energy in this storm system than there was in Hurricane Katrina.
Wow.
It was a very, very powerful thing. There's a high pressure system moving from the west to the east, and they thought it was going to make it turn around day one. It didn't. In the little notes of the weather people, thought it was going to turn around in the morning of the second day. Thought it was going to turn. Nope, didn't. Still aimed straight for Manhattan. Third day, thought it was going to turn around. Nope, didn't. Fourth day, they thought it was going to turn around. Well, good thing it did, because they were out of space for turning. It just came up to a stop, then turned around that afternoon, started heading out of town. It didn't lose hurricane status. You would think it would hitting a high pressure system, it would tear it up, but it still remained hurricane force. It was a Category 3 and it went down to a 1, but it stayed 1 for several days after that. But it's peculiar that it's heading straight for Manhattan. Now, it brings up some questions. How could they be 100% sure it wouldn't hit Manhattan, or it wouldn't stall out there? Exactly what it was going to do, because how fast can you evacuate? How many million people are there in Manhattan?
Was it 20 million?
Well, maybe that in the whole area, but at least a couple of million people. And they don't have cars. They can't leave town. And there's Hurricane Irene, and also Hurricane Bill. Remember that? Was that 2009? I don't remember exactly which year that was, but somebody I know who lived in Manhattan rented a car just in case they needed to make an escape. They wanted to be sure to be able to get out of there, because Manhattan's kind of at sea level. It's a few feet up. So we're not talking about a hurricane, mowing down Manhattan, but stalling out right there, you get up with humongous storm surges and you flood, all of Manhattan. They had a big undertow problem at Atlantic City Beach. I think they closed the beach. The JFK Airport's right at sea level. So that makes a weird question. Like, you hear about all these other ones. Weather stations love to milk them for all they can get out of them. Oh, come watch our weather channel. And they even have, various logos they have for their projects. Like it's a big deal. Why didn't they do that for Hurricane Aaron?
Yeah.
It's almost as if it was non-existent to most people.
Right.
No one really knew about it.
And I looked at this place where I got my data from for the 3 major airports surrounding Manhattan: LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark Airport. All 3 of them reported thunder that day on 9/11. So that tells you that it's close enough to have an electrical effect. Birds know when a hurricane's coming and they head for cover.
Yeah.
They can feel the electrical field. Hurricane Wilma was supposed to go up towards New Orleans, I remember reading that morning that the birds left town around Fort Myers. And okay, that's where it's going. And sure enough, that is where it went. The birds can tell you where the hurricane's going. Spiders pack up their webs. People with arthritis say that, some of them say that they can feel a storm coming because of this different electrical atmosphere. So that the hurricane was close enough to have that. But the thunder being reported. But hurricanes are pretty big. I won't, but I can't say beyond that. But what I can say also is when the later part of my book, I talk about parallel evidence to give examples. For example, my favorite line, hot things glow, but not everything that glows is hot.
Yeah.
And to demonstrate that, I show a fluorescent light and an incandescent light. No, I don't have a light bulb theory. No, this is parallel evidence to demonstrate, different mechanisms for one is, the resistance heating, and the other one is the plasma kind of thing. And so, just to get, I'm not explicitly saying what happened in 9/11. It's just that here's basic phenomena, just giving an example. And also, John Hutchison's work. I know how he produces all the same effects that we saw in 9/11. Okay, how does he do it? What kind of physics is involved? And he gets a static field and interferes radio frequency signals within it. Well, there's a static field on 9/11. Don't know if it was used, but the hurricane there and the thunder at the airports document that there was a static field there. I won't go beyond what I can prove, but I can prove that existed, but whether or not it was used, I don't know.
I see.
And also, there's a lot of other strange things that, like the Earth's magnetic field, as measured in Alaska, because they have good magnetometer site. Beginning about 20 minutes before the North Tower got its hole, the values, they've been sort of steady state. They tend to, move around here and there. They start going, trending down, and they abruptly start going up just at the moment the North Tower got its hole. And then the moment the South Tower got its hole, then they abruptly went horizontal. And then they start going down when the South Tower went poof. Then they really dropped down when the North Tower went poof. And they're all haywire for all afternoon until Building 7 goes poof, and then they're almost back to normal. It's kind of interesting.
That's very interesting.
So I have data like that. I'm not stating what it is, and then you look at the correlation with the, the path of the hurricane and all. Maybe it's, one caused the other, maybe the other caused the one, or maybe it's just, coincidence.
Right. I'm looking at it on your website right now, actually, drjudywood.com, under Hurricane Aaron. Here, you have like a little tracking map of the hurricane, and it goes right there, it stops, and then it turns.
Yeah, it's pretty weird, isn't it?
It is very weird. That's one of
the reporting for duty, sir.
Yep. And it stands at attention, and then it moves out of the way.
It was, the closest point, approximately at 8 a.m. that morning. I've had trolls say, no, the eye of the hurricane wasn't, I'm talking about the outer bands. Because, a figure skater, puts their arms out to slow down. The hurricane got bigger, when it was turning around. It got bigger, and the cloud cover expanded. Then it, packed up and left. And
headed out.
Yeah, I've got pictures in my book showing, with the same size circle around the hurricane. You can see it's smaller than the circle, and then it gets big, as big as the circle, then it gets smaller again as it, comes in and goes back out. But for a hurricane to have gotten that close, Hurricane Bill, it did essentially the same thing. And it was just talked up like, oh, this is a disaster, the world's about to end, the sky's falling, that type of panic. And it had kind of a similar behavior. Hurricane Irene, it was a Category 1 and was going over land, was going to bust up before it got to Manhattan, but they evacuated everything.
Go ahead.
No, it's just like you knew that wasn't going to be a huge problem, but anyway.
I see on your website also the levitation, material effects, and storm effects, dealing with the Hutchison effect. What is
similarities?
This? Yeah.
Well, I also stuff I haven't kept adding to my website. I was doing that when I was putting stuff to my website. It's like a filing cabinet when I was working on the legal case as well as working on my book. But I also, in my presentation, show some things from tornadoes, like a group of tornadoes in Texas, April 3rd, I think it was. Was that 2012? I forget the exact year. But there's these flying trucks. You can do a search on that. There's big, trailers of the tractor trailer trucks, up, several hundred feet off the ground. And then they fall out of the field and then come down.
That's incredible.
It's flying trucks. Remember the Joplin, Missouri video? The guy went in the convenience store and then tornado was coming. He went in the walk-in cooler.
Yeah.
And he has this video camera running, and you see lights, because the camera's flying around the room, in the thing, and then people screaming, and then they're saying, like, I love y'all, like they think that he's about to die. And then everything stops, and then you hear him say, "Hey, Joe, is that you under me? Who's on top of me?" In other words, they were floating in there. There's no wind coming through there. They're in a walk-in cooler in this box.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's of course the what's the story? The one with the Kansas girl, Toto.
Oh, the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
Dorothy.
yeah. Even that's a hypothetical kind of thing, but house getting carried away. But stuff like that can happen. You get lift or disruption. Something gets carried away, or there's been various weird things that happen. Right after my book came out, somebody in Florida wrote to me and said, "Oh yeah, I was out in the football field. They didn't call us in soon enough, and I got picked up by the funnel cloud, and you could breathe inside of it." And it's a couple of things they said. Proprioception and movement were precise and easy. Proprioception meaning where your body parts are in space. Like close your eyes and touch your nose. Your finger knows right where your nose is. It's that type of thing. He knew like everything about floating around. Then eventually the thing put him down, the other end of the field. So it's not a big vacuum cleaner type thing. It turns out that electricity, magnetism, and gravity are all like different sides of the same coin.
Fascinating. It just goes to show what they're capable of doing, and just most people are so close-minded, and they just think it's all a big conspiracy theory. And I mean, it's fascinating.
They don't solve any problems by just running around circles. The sky's falling.
Yeah.
Or those are the bad guys over there. Instead, go try stuff out, think about stuff, learn, advance your thinking.
That's very right. Stop bickering about what it's called.
Yeah, go figure out how to do something about it. If the truth came out about 9/11, the world would change.
It would. I think there's a lot of questions that it depends on what level of research you're on. I think a lot of times people need to be presented questions that at least get them to start thinking differently, so then they can be presented with, when I say questions, I mean like philosophical concepts or hypothetical situations or parallel evidence like you're talking about. And then once they can kind of open their mind to see that things are not as they seem or as they believe, then you can present them with the hard facts that you have.
Let's look at the obvious, like the cover image of my book. I call it the bubbler because it looks like a drinking fountain made out of dust.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Midwest, the term for drinking fountain's bubbler. The building's turned to dust. How can you pull that off in front of the whole world and not be called out on it? Isn't that incredible?
It is incredible. People's programmed perceptions and being led to believe that what they've been told is correct, or again, being scooped up in that second net and believing the automatic opposite of what they were told to believe. Since they're rebellious, they don't want to believe that, so they believe the opposite, and they're scooped back up, and then you have a very, very small minority of the population that have done what you've done. And you're not saying, believe me because of this, or believe me because of this. You're saying, believe me because
here's the
this is the
evidence.
facts. Right.
No, I don't want people to believe me. I want them to believe themselves. That's why you wrote the book. So, anybody who's gone through the book, an honest person who reads my book knows what happened by the time for themselves. Knows what happened at the end. It isn't a belief thing at all. It puts it, like you look at it left and right, but all of the various pieces of evidence that of the dustification. And of course, I get hassled by trolls for that word, but it is most scientific of any, because it's not vaporization, that implies high heat. It's not pulverization, that implies kinetic energy, grinding something up. And it ends up being finer than any kind of destructive thing that anyone has seen before.
Like you said, a dust. It's like a powder.
More than that, we're talking about 100 the size of red blood cells, the size of DNA.
Jeez.
People inhale it right into their bloodstream. Why are they sick? That's they got all the building components in their system.
So was it almost like a nanoparticulate that absorbed right into the lungs?
What do you mean a nanoparticulate? We're talking about atomic level. The steel, dissociated. Steel is like 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, somewhere around there. Iron with other doodads in it, like carbon and chromium and some other things like that.
Uh-huh.
And they help its properties when it's all like bonded together and manufactured together. But if it's dissociated, it all comes apart. Like, what it appears is going on here is, instead of the atoms being attracted to each other, they're repelling each other.
Oh.
It's like somebody flipped the switch, and it's just like suddenly the atoms all want elbow room. And when that happens, you get all elemental, stuff of every constituent of the building.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what happens when iron, raw iron molecules, raw iron atoms, what happens to them? They instantly rust in the atmosphere.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, they would instantly rust. So you have a whole lot of iron oxide in the dust.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have dustified aluminum cladding. You have aluminum powder. Aluminum powder and iron oxide is two main ingredients of thermite. Makes a nice cover story, doesn't it?
It does make a nice cover story. Very well put together.
But thermite, how it acts, it makes heat, lots of it.
Right, because it burns very hot. It burns hot enough to cut through things like steel.
Right, and where was the evidence of any high heat? But it explains away those who are adamantly, like, I've said how it's dustified building. Whatever I say, and of course, Mr. Gage will be listening to this. He studies everything I say, and then he starts, mimicking it. I've pointed out that the organic component in the dustification. How can that be from high heat? It wouldn't survive high heat. Organic material.
Yeah. See, you bring up excellent points, and you not only bring them up, but you prove them. And it's just, like I say, I think you've got the answers. I really do. It's just that's me.
Right. Well, for all the people I've spoken to over the years, I take my hat off and bow in respect to you for what you've done and for the information that you have. And just the stern ability to be able to also say, and so many people don't want to do this nowadays. They're scared of other people thinking about them or being wrong. But you're just able to say, no, this is the fact, and if I don't know it, then I'm going to tell you I don't know it. We're going to talk about what I do know. A lot of people don't want to do that anymore, Dr. Wood.
Right. They want the answer. I don't know if it's our quote, educational indoctrination system or what it is, but people have lost the ability to problem solve.
Everything's been simplified.
Right. And people run through engineering school now has become like a trade school. Instead of learning how to problem solve, like the first class in engineering is, engineering statics. I'd run that like a boot camp. That's how I took it, and I thought that was good. That, very disciplined. You learn this pattern, and then problems solve themselves. You learn how to lay out the problem, what you're looking for, how you're going to go about solving it. What's the given material? You define the problem. How can you solve a problem if you haven't defined it? First you establish what happened. Right.
I'd have to find exactly where I've read some of these stories. I know, and I think in Florida they've done this for a couple of years, where some schools, they were not getting funding from the state or federal funding. So because the students weren't passing the tests and the standardized testing.
So now they get them to memorize the answers for the test.
or what they'll do is they'll lower the passing rate of the test, and they'll make it much easier so everybody passes it now. Or you'll have teachers, they get pay bumps for the more students they have with A's in the class, so they just go ahead and they pass everybody, whether they showed up to class or they failed the test or they passed it with an A to begin with.
Right, and universities, you move up the bean counter list, the faster you can move students through on the university rating scales. It's a different kind of bean counting that goes on, and just like professors are rated by how many degrees they give and how much dollars they bring in.
That's right.
And it's lost the ability to learn, and it comes down to needing to problem solve. So how can they pull this off in front of the whole world? Those very points, and how can they keep pulling it off? How you can keep a cover up going? Allow people to lie about it.
Allow people to lie, allow people to argue and debate about meaningless topics, I suppose.
Yeah. When someone is turned off from my work because, she's this, she's that, she's whatever, why don't people say, well, gee, why don't I go look at the information myself? If somebody's calling for a new investigation, why don't they at least look at what we already have done? Now, here's another thing about calling for a new investigation. Who's going to do it?
That's right. Who's going to do it, and what kind of oversight would there be? I mean, it's
But also engineers, right? Well, if you have 2,000 engineers or whatever in your club, why can't you do it? Are all of his engineers incompetent?
Well, another thing, you're really right on about that. You're spot on, because people,
go ahead.
It's like they want the same entity, the same group of people who they know lied to them. It's like they want these dark suits to then turn around and say,
and they won't believe anybody else except these people who, daddy,
Right, exactly. It's like the nanny state. If even though they know they lied to them, they still want them to then turn around and say, yes, the official story is wrong. Let's do a new investigation.
You've seen enough of my work to see the buildings, essentially, mostly turn into dust in midair.
Right.
Okay, that's a classified technology that did that, wouldn't you say?
I think I would say so, yes.
Who cares whose it is? It's somebody's classified technology. We won't discuss who owns it, for solve the problem.
There's not really a need to either.
Right. This technology is out there. Okay, you get one operator, you got 20 more lined up, after that. But understanding the technology and knowing it's out there is more powerful than anything. But so if it's somebody's classified technology, are you going to have the U.S. government do an investigation and then expect them to come up with the right answer of it's classified technology?
That's exactly right.
It's not going to happen.
That's right.
They've got to cover it.
Amazing.
How about if they know somebody who didn't have a formal education, did this on their kitchen table? I'm speaking of John Hutchison. You wouldn't want to give those instructions to too many people out there.
Yeah.
It's to know, but this is a fundamental aspect of our world. Something I like to point out is, according to our history books, and I'm just quoting our history books, the years 600 BC, supposedly, is when they discovered static electricity. Would you believe it took another 2,400 more years to discover electricity?
That's an interesting point.
That is.
You tell me they didn't have any electrical storms or anything else in the meantime? Now, how about tornadoes? They still haven't been really discovered yet. You learn to observe, and you learn a whole lot more. The flying trucks. Why isn't anyone talking about that? If remember in Cub Scouts, you get a wire and wrap it around a spiral, wrap it around a nail, plug them into a 9-volt battery, and voila, the nail's now a magnet.
Yeah, I remember doing that.
Okay, and then Tesla with his hydroelectric power plants learned that, not learn from that, but put it to good use, that you move a conductor through a magnetic field, and voila, you get electricity. So we know we can turn one into another, that they're related. Boyd Bushman did this experiment where he got basically like 3 rocks and hollowed out a spot in each one of them for a chunk of metal. The middle one was just dead metal, not magnetized. And the first and third one, he did different. He put magnets in. The first one, he put magnets in so they like each other. They're stuck together. And the third one, he stacked them up where they were fighting each other. They didn't like each other, so he clamped them together and stick them in the rock, and then he tapes the rock up, and then sends somebody to the highest building on campus, has them drop them over the edge to see which one lands first. Consistently, the one where they're fighting each other goes more slowly than the control, and the one where they like each other falls faster than the control. And people have repeated this, showing that magnetism affects gravity. If electricity affects magnetism, then electricity affects gravity. And this was, I think, what T. Townsend Brown was working on when it went underground around 1950. They were thinking of charging airplane wings so the airplane could fly faster. So it's just think of those things are all related. But now, talking about electricity, magnetism, and so forth. Tornadoes like trailer parks?
Yeah.
You know why?
Why?
I think it's because they're not grounded. There's a charge in the air, and the charge can build up without being able to discharge fast enough. I'm not saying they're not grounded at all. It's just it's the relative difference. How fast can it discharge through the grounding? Now think about all the toasted cars.
Right.
They're up on rubber tires. They can't discharge as fast as they can build up a charge.
See, that's what I'm talking about when I look at your work and I read what you've done. It's really incredible to me because most people they give such a simplified version of what happened, and you go into a lot of details that make me actually have to think.
I'm not saying I have absolute proof. I'm saying I see this pattern. And the ambulance, sitting out in front of the front door of Tower 1, or the remains of...
I remember that.
It's almost like, maybe the door is a little bit crooked, but the rest of it doesn't look like it got clobbered with anything.
Exactly. It's almost in perfect condition.
Ambulances have, some have good grounding on them. When they park, they drop a chain down so they're grounded, because you wouldn't want a spark to set off your oxygen tanks.
Right.
Or, your heart patient or whatever. So I'm not saying I know that for sure, that one was for sure, but that's a possibility why, it's could have its grounding difference. Mm-hmm. But, there's just a whole lot of interesting things to study. It isn't about going and getting anybody.
That's right. It's just about the facts.
That's right. And the fact is that they've got some serious technology that some of us aren't being told about.
And if we had use of this, let's say if half the world read my book, in the next week, be sheer mayhem. Because think of the implications. You have free energy. The oil companies are gone.
Right. Hundreds of trillions of dollars in losses. Massive corporations would fail overnight. Economies would collapse.
Well, we need to think about having a different kind of world, and this might be a good time to make the switch. This usury type of economy is like bloated out at its end point.
Oh, I couldn't think of a better time to make the switch. Now's a great time. I mean,
we just need a different culture, a culture where people just respect each other and respect things. It isn't about, exploiting each other.
That's true.
That's right. True. And the last thing is that a lot of people nowadays are so, I think they've kind of been conditioned in school as well. They're kind of scared to be incorrect. They're scared to make a mistake. They're scared to learn from a mistake. They want to always be correct about things. I just feel like it's taboo in our society to be incorrect, or for someone to even suggest that you might be incorrect.
Or to someone to know the difference between what they know that they know and speculation.
That's right.
They don't know the difference. A lot of them don't.
That's right. And a lot of people also think that when they question things, like they have a preconditioned cookie-cutter belief, and that they think that by questioning anything that comes into contact or conflict with that belief, that they're being a true skeptic of something. And they're not. They're just defending what they already believe.
Yeah, they're defending their football team. It becomes a sport
it's like tribal. It's
or
tribal.
Political or political team.
Yeah, that's right. It's if you're not the red, then you must be the blue. We're better than you.
Rah, rah, rah. Rather than, are you interested in truth or are you interested in something else?
That's it. Well, hey, we're getting low on time here,
Okay.
Dr. Wood. So what I want to do is to give you the next 5 minutes. Anything you want to get out at all, by all means, go ahead. And I thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me on, and thanks for being open to, different kind of discussion. And I think it is so important. It all comes down, I think, journalistic integrity. Both the guests and the hosts, both the content in every part of life. That hold everyone around you accountable. Your friends and all. If they're making something up, call them on it.
Even Michael and I do that to each other.
Yeah.
Great.
I've lost some so-called friends in this business because I've called them out. A few of them most recently.
If it isn't about the truth, what's the point?
Exactly.
If why have a show? If you stop and imagine that no one in the world told the truth, we have no culture. We don't have a society. We don't have anything. It's like you spun around without any kind of equilibrium, and you're just a lab rat kind of. Not even that, but if everyone told the truth, they could be respected. You don't have to have the same taste in things. You can respect somebody else's taste. Like somebody wants to, play music, and somebody else wants to do something else. As long as they respect each other, it's cool. But being honest and truthful, especially media, and don't accept people lying. Call them on if they continue lying, and the evidence is shown contrary to it. It's that's what's destroying our culture more than anything. I think that's the root of it.
Well said. Very well said.
Yeah, very well said. I appreciate it, Dr. Wood, for coming on the show tonight with us. Really nice to speak with you.
I gotta see about getting you a book.
That would be wonderful, because I've read bits and pieces of it from other people I've borrowed.
Oh, so you have seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it. I had a friend at another radio station who showed it to me many years ago, and I read some of it, but I didn't have time to read the entire thing. But
would you read the whole thing if I?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Ask Michael. That's all I do is read.
Oh yeah, he's a big time reader.
Right. I sell the book at essentially at cost. So when I give somebody a book, it's like I'm buying it out of my own pocket. So it's if somebody isn't going to read it, then But if they promise to read it, then
well, I'd be happy to read it and then have you on my show as well too.
Oh, okay, so you have a different show.
Yeah, I have another show I've done separately outside of this network for about 6 years now coming up on.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. Yeah, tell the truth. Always tell the truth. I don't know what you do about white lies. Yeah. Yes. Your wife says, "How do I look?" In this outfit. Oh, yeah, it makes you look fat.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can develop a culture where that's accepted, and so that when it doesn't make you look fat, you believe them.
You believe them, right. People are like so amazed now by truth. They're so used to being lied to.
I'm not kidding you. Nobody that really knows me and is close to me will ask me those questions because I'll be honest. And,
that's cool. It's your fault for asking.
Yeah, hey, you ask me, you want to know, right?
That's right. If you're afraid of the answer, don't ask the question.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. But it's been great talking with you guys, and keep promoting that. I don't know how else we can get it. It's okay to hold people accountable. It's okay to call them out on stuff.
That's right. Absolutely.
And if they want to keep lying, that's noted too.
Right, that's their business. If they want to disassociate themselves with you, because of what you say or with the information that you have, then so be it.
Or if they can't handle facts, if they want to beyond all reason continue to lie, then they shouldn't be doing what they're doing.
That's true.
Yeah.
So. It confuses people when they hear so many different things, unless that's what the objective is. But remember, the truth is known and it is knowable. It's just being covered up in a haystack of stuff.
It is. It's the proverbial needle in the haystack. It's done on purpose. Yep. It's to distort the image of the truth, to give people false images and false ideas. So it leads them down those alternative paths and those red herrings.
Because it's more fun to not know. What's the objective?
I tell you what, I have had more fun sticking to my morals and sticking to the truth and the facts and calling those out who refuse to be honest and make light of what we do here. And I've had more fun doing that than I could have ever had making up wild stories just to be popular. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
And neither one of us have needed to. We've come to where we are today simply because we've told the truth and refused to sell out to other people.
Yeah.
If you know what it is that you know that you know that you know.
That's
and
right.
If you don't have any information to know anything either way, then you're done.
That's right.
Like MH370. Was there such a plane? Did it take off? Which way was it headed? I don't know anything. I don't know even that information.
All right.
So,
well, Dr. Wood, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being on the show, and always a pleasure.
It was great.
All right.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Have a good one. And Ryan, we're down to just a couple minutes. So if you want to say any final words, by all means, go ahead. And then I should tell people quickly, though, tomorrow night, I won't be on live. There'll be a recorded show tomorrow night. And this time, it is because of football. Okay.
No,
yeah,
Michael.
I deserve it. So,
hey, you're honest.
Yeah, I'm being honest.
I missed a couple of shows because of a hockey game.
Yeah.
So I'm being honest about it.
It's very rare I get to see my Bills play in the night light, so I'm going to take advantage of it. I've been through a lot, so I need a rest.
You deserve a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you playing the Secret Teachings tomorrow?
I think that's what I'm going to do. Because Sunday we weren't able to run the Secret Teaching, so I think we'll do that tomorrow night.
Great. That's going to be myself and Dane Wigington on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, folks, all I can say is thank you for tuning in. We had Jim Mars last night, Judy Wood tonight. That's what we do. We try to get to the truth here on the L&M Radio Network. This has been a broadcast of The Last Frequency. And I'll be back with you live on Friday but the Secret Teachings will air tomorrow night in place of Late Night in the Midlands. Ryan?
Right, that's right. Yeah, do the research, do the math, stop letting people tell you what to think, including myself. Start to connect the dots between seemingly unconnected people, places, and events in the world that seems so complex will actually start to make sense. Namaste.
Yeah. All right. Keep your eyes posted to the sky. Keep your ears posted to this broadcast. Good night, everybody.